Since times immemorial, the people of this land treasured the spiritual relics that bound past, present, and future into one invisible unity. We admire them, appreciate their enormous importance, and try to preserve them for the generations to come. Among such shrines are Transfiguration Church, founded by Euphrosynia, and Sofia Cathedral. Nights flew swiftly by, while the pages of Holy Scriptures only very slowly grew into books. Transcribing church works required much patience, diligence, and humility. Young Princess Pretslava, christened Euphrosynia, strenuously worked to complete what was to become her first act of faith. Since the very first days after taking the monastic vows until the end of her life, Euphrosynia's great deeds invariably served to glorify the Polotsk lands. Polotsk is believed to be the most ancient of all Belarusian cities. It is first mentioned in the primary chronicle, the tale of bygone years, under the year of 862. But it is highly probable that the city was founded 300 years before that. Polotsk gradually became the center of one of the strongest Slavonic principalities of those times. It rose to the heights of its power under the rule of Всеслав Чародей, Всеслав the Sorcerer.
Начало своего правления Всеслав ознаменовал строительством Софийского собора, который сразу же стал центром православия Полоцкого княжества и возвещал о возросшей политической и экономической роли города.
But what Vseslav wanted to emphasize, that Polotsk was equal in importance and power to the rival cities of Kiev and Novgorod, which by that time already had their own Sofia cathedrals. Sofia in Polotsk was not inferior to its elder peers in either scale or architectural splendor, and since the day of its foundation, Sofia's white ship over the blue waters of the Dvina River became the symbol of Polotsk Principality's greatness and might. Within its walls, the Prince of Polotsk met with foreign ambassadors, declared wars, and signed peace treaties. Even the city's seal of that time confirms the importance of the cathedral for Polotsk. It said, "The seal of the city of Polotsk and Holy Sofia." And it was Sofia Cathedral that became a home for Euphrosynia of Polotsk. Her life signified a whole new epoch in the history of the Belarusian people. Her name is connected with a number of events that enriched our country's culture and with the story of two important Christian Orthodox shrines, Sofia Cathedral and Transfiguration Church. The very fact that already at the age of 12, Euphrosynia was able to convince her aunt Hygiumenes to admit her to the veil against father's will speaks of an unusual strength of character. Euphrosynia settled down in Sofia Cathedral and started transcribing old books, which at that time was considered a very hard job, suitable only for men. Euphrosynia was to continue working towards the spiritual unity of the Polotsk Principality, just as her famous ancestor would want it.
Одним из главных сокровищ Софийского собора являлась библиотека, заложенная Всеславом Чародеем. В ней хранились священные книги, привезенные из Византии и Болгарии. Это были Библия, Писание и Жития святых.
And who else but Euphrosynia could complete the ambitions of her great-grandfather? For her books were of enormous importance. She treated every page of sacred scriptures with unspeakable trepidation and believed in their power over human hearts and souls. What greater heritage than God's wisdom and the teachings of the Church could she pass on to the future generations? She set up a scriptorium and a school for those who wanted to study the art of bookmaking. During her lifetime, Sofia Cathedral became the depository of the city's chronicles, while the library was famous far beyond the borders of the principality. No wonder it soon evoked interest of many foreign rulers. Probably for that very reason today we can only guess at its whereabouts. According to one of the theories, Ivan the Terrible, having heard a lot about the library, took it to Moscow after he had conquered Polotsk. At the same time, Polish chronicles state that King Stefan Batory, who regained the city in 1579, took the library to Poland. But these are merely conjectures. The question of where the library is now remains unanswered.
Сегодня Софийский собор внешне отличается от своего первоначального вида. Не единожды София была разрушена и отстроена вновь.
In the 11th century, it was a five-nave, cross-domed, cube-shaped church. The cathedral looked almost too impressive for those times. Its outward splendor inspired awe in Pollock's dwellers. And it's only natural since Sofia was the first stone building in the totally wooden city. The cathedral was 31.5 meters long and 26 meters wide. Looking at the construction site, none could escape the feeling of admiration and pride. Reverence and veneration towards Sofia has pervaded the believers' prayers throughout the history of the Belarusian lands ever since Vseslav the Sorcerer. At the turn of the 15th and 16th centuries, the cathedral was rebuilt as a defense-type temple. It is confirmed by the 1579 Polotsk city plan, the first known to us. Built originally as a Christian Orthodox shrine in 1569, it became a union church and remained as such till 1839. In 1710, it was damaged by an explosion in the powder depot. After 28 years, Union Church Archbishop Florian Grebnitsky invited architect Jan Krzysztof Gaubic from Vilno to Polotsk to restore Sofia. The ancient foundation and the remains of the cathedral walls were incorporated into the design of the new church, which was completed by 1750. Today's Sofia is very different from the original temple. It is described as a monument of Vilno Baroque architecture. The cathedral is a three-nave, one-apse basilica. The interiors changed as well, and apart from Baroque columns, feature a lot of stucco work, ornately shaped cornices, all in unusually bright colors.
До наших дней сохранился лишь фундамент Софийского собора XI века. Именно тот фундамент, который заложил Всеслав Чародей, из которого Ефросинья начинала свой духовный путь.
From Sofia, Euphrosynia moved to the town of Seltzo, in the vicinity of Polotsk, where she founded a nunnery and built Transfiguration Church. The description of her life states that one of God's angels came to her in her sleep and told Euphrosynia to settle down there.
В то же время ангел явился и полоцкому епископу Илье и повелел благословить Ефросинью на создание монастыря и возведение церкви.
Thus, in accordance with the God's will, a nunnery was founded in Seltzo to bear the name of Saint Euphrosynia. A church was built there too, which later became one more symbol of Polotsk. A talented architect, Ioan, was invited to work on it. Ioan wanted Transfiguration Church to be heavenward directed, solemn and light as a cloud. This church signifies the beginnings of a Belarusian architectural school with its own traditions and peculiarities.
Храм был возведен за 30 недель. Вероятнее всего, с апреля по октябрь. Согласитесь, сроки удивительные даже для наших дней.
With the church completed, Euphrosynia took great care to supply it with the necessary books and ornaments.
Стены храма были расписаны уникальными фресками в лучших традициях византийских мастеров.
Several centuries later, as the church fell into Jesuits' ownership, the frescoes were plastered over. Probably it was at that time that the so-called graffitos appeared. In the 19th century, the church walls were covered with 2 layers of oil paint. Today, researchers work to reveal the original 12th century frescoes. The newer wall paintings are carefully transferred onto a new support. Today, Transfiguration Church is one of the very few temples in the Slavonic lands that has almost completely preserved frescoes. One more relic donated by Euphrosynia to the church was a cross made by outstanding jeweler Lazar Bogsha in 1161. Hollows, fragments of the Holy Sepulchre and blood of Christ from the Holy Land, were brought to Belarus to be used in the making of the cross. The inscriptions it bears can be divided into two categories. There are those that speak of the year the cross was made and the name of the craftsman. But there is also a curse against anyone who dares to take the cross away from Transfiguration Church. And yet this relic has traveled quite a lot. Already at the beginning of the 13th century, it was taken from Polotsk by Smolensk princes. In 1514, Vasily III of Moscow stole it into his treasury. And when the cross landed in the hands of Ivan the Terrible, he promised to return it provided he manages to take Polotsk. And he kept his word. The relic disappeared in 1941, and its whereabouts are still unknown. In the pages of history of the Belarusian lands, the name of Venerable Euphrosynia has always been held sacred. She is called the Holy Protector of Belarus.
Как и сотни лет назад, к Софийскому собору и Спасо-Преображенской церкви круглый год приходят люди поклониться памятникам духовного подвига наших предков, прикоснуться к великим святыням родной земли.